Welcome, Earthlings. This is the Agents of Aquarius. My name is Jim Pine.
Matty D, hello, hello.
This is episode 15. Um, you can find us YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and your mom's house. Uh, actually, that's a very popular podcast. You can't find us at your mom's house. Yeah, it's episode 15. Here we are, caught in the crossfire between the Andromedas and the fucking Nibiru. I don't know, dude. I'm tossed the fuck up. Well, we just before we started podcasting, we were just talking about hypocrisy, and then I said, "Oh, I've done that." And then what was the saying you said?
Yes, it
Or
was
the thought.
no, the idea is we're all going to be a hypocrite at some point and more than once. So go easy on people when it's their turn. It's kind of what we're saying, but feel
Yeah,
free to call someone out for it. Keep your people in check, keep yourself in check. But get ready for it. There's going to come a time where it's your turn to be a fucking hypocrite. It's like, oh Christ,
I
that's
mean,
me doing that.
how often have you been like called somebody out as a hypocrite and then almost in the next sentence or paragraph also was hypocrite? Like I'm saying is I definitely know I have. And it's like, it's so funny because then you become hyper aware of those things. If you're like, if you can look and observe things, you can be like, oh, I was just a hypocrite right there. Like immediately after I called this other person a hypocrite.
Yeah, and who are you saying were the type of person that's particularly self-aware? What were you saying? Observers?
Observer. Yeah. I mean, I consider myself an observer. It's the way I look at the world. I'm kind of, yeah, I take a step back from the crowd and then observe everything. It's kind of the way I'm handling life at
And you do that with your own
moment.
mind too.
Yeah, moment to moment. Well, if you're an observer, you're observing. Hopefully, you're observing as much as possible, which is yourself. You're included in the observation. That's part. Like once you go into any type of what is it? Like they say self-help, but I really don't like. That's kind of it's like which self are you helping? The ego or the non-ego? But yeah, once you go into any type of reflection on yourself and you become then you can then become an observer of the world and then observe yourself, or vice versa. You observe yourself first, see you have all these flaws, I got to change them, I'm going to make changes in my life, and then you start to can observe the world after that. Whatever, whichever one it is, or the third option, it all happens at once, sure. But it's about, I mean, being an observer is about being conscientiously truthful in what you're seeing. I'm
So you're
pretty.
saying you're not one of those 70% that just follows everything they're told to do. So honestly, it's not the majority that thinks introspectively like that. I don't think so. Maybe
Well,
I'm wrong, but can you keep that thought going where you're at?
I'm susceptible to being told what to do to know that I'll do the opposite, and then that's a control mechanism. So, like, if you tell me what to do, I might just do the opposite, and that's also a control mechanism.
Well, if
But
we know
you
you
can
well
control
enough to
me.
play you that way, that's pretty a pretty good accomplishment.
But as an observer, then you have to be aware of that as well. And then you have to be like, wait, I can't. I gotta try to always be fluid and not just go the opposite. Don't go with what they tell you. Don't go with the opposite of it.
No, you want to be flexible and you want to be reacting to the moment correctly in its time. But these are these things we talked about in past episodes about, this is critical thinking. This is, observing yourself and how you relate to the world. That kind of critical thinking. It's a shame that our schools rely on the parents to teach a person that as they're growing up, because a lot of the parents aren't doing it because they weren't taught themselves. This generational pass me down game of bad mental habits. It would be great if there were some responsibility taken to get people in our education system to start thinking introspectively, to start thinking um, critically, because what you're doing is critical thought and self-observation.
Yeah, our schools are so far from that. It's the exact opposite. It's literally a, let alone they have a curriculum that they're supposed to teach. And now looking back, one of the people that owned the books of the curriculum we were teaching was Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's cohort. Her father owned the fucking publishing
The
company,
textbooks
the textbook
in our
company in this
schools, yeah.
country. It's just like,
A reputed Mossad agent, but never actually we haven't seen the papers he signed, but it's pretty much understood that he was likely with Mossad. And so a
No,
Mossad
definitely.
agent,
Yeah, definitely.
big time newspaper guy, already a shaper of public discourse and
Well,
narrative. Now he
well,
gets to be in charge of our books.
he was a media. He owned a lot of media, and if you think you own media and you're not, see, that's the thing. I think people might get confused when we say Mossad agent, oh, CIA agent, like, are they clocking in, going to the CIA? They've gone through all the special schooling. They collect a check that says the U.S. Treasury on it, or are they that part of these intelligence agencies that operate outside the agency, but the intelligence agency operates those people because the agencies own companies and
Yeah.
corporations. They then use those to funnel money in different ways to do things that they can't do, but they can get a company to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, is he like, did he collect a check that said Mossad on it, or the
No,
Treasury of
it's
Israel,
when
or
you
did he just was so connected in that by being an owner of a newspaper agency back in those time, decades and decades and decades ago, like, you don't get to buy that unless they got some shit on you so that they can make sure you do what they want also, because they need to control whatever they call their Operation Mockingbird, or in Israel,
they
but
had
here
their
we
own
call
version,
it.
no doubt.
Yeah, yeah.
No, honestly, the way you speak about this guy, it sounds like he was colluding with intelligence agencies. And if he was purchasing a publishing house that makes school books for the United States, he was probably colluding with our intelligence agency.
I
Like
would
Mossad
think,
and CIA are super close. They're real, real close.
I would say there's people in the CIA that have nothing to do with Mossad. There's people in Mossad that have nothing to do with the CIA in any other
No, but
way
as
other than,
organizations, I
yeah.
believe they do have deep ties.
So, okay, yes. There's people. Well, I'm just trying to explain, because it's not, we say CIA and that just makes it sound like we're saying everybody at the CIA. It's like there's people that are just CIA. They work at the Pentagon, and they have nothing to do with Mossad. They've never crossed lines. They don't give them and then there's dark factions in these intelligence agencies that are absolutely, not only does somebody work with and for the CIA, they work with and for Mossad, and they work with and for MI6, and they work in whatever intelligence agencies they are. That a KGB would be, I think, Russia's intelligence
Yeah,
agency.
well, I think they're GRU now, but
Okay.
I think there's a third thing going on here too, that these agencies do coordinate with each other. Like the Five Eyes countries are Canada, US, Britain, Australia, New Zealand. They share information. I think our CIA openly through its officers. They're not agents; they're CIA officers.
Well, there are
I think
agents,
they're
there's officers, and there's operators, and then
okay.
there's
So,
other titles as well.
but I would say it's pretty much 100% guaranteed that there are employees of the CIA whose job it is to share approved information that needs to go to these other agencies, because they
Yes.
do share information, they do share intelligence.
Yes. I'm did my disclaimer just to say that there are people in these agencies have no idea about how deep it actually goes. It's like Freemasons. There are
Mhm.
Freemasons that are just there, and they go to their local lodge every month, and then once a year they go to the big one, and then that, and it's a brotherhood for them, and they don't know because they're not 33rd degree.
Man, it would
There's
suck to
levels
be
to
the
this. What,
person who finds this shit out. That day is gonna be a tough day.
well, I think you just brought up 90% of the people on the planet. So, I mean,
Yeah.
those people are those Masons are no different than those CIA people that literally would never steal a dime. They do everything perfect in life. They do everything. They're meticulous in their perfection. Probably go to church once a week. Those people are ideally great people, but they're not what the skeletal form or the structure, the skeleton of these agencies are. No, that's in the closet. That's totally different. Like, because once again, we would think, oh, the CIA, why would they? Well, oh, okay, maybe they get more information if they deal with it. Okay, no, because we've gotten to a point where the CIA doesn't work for us, the people, anymore.
Mm-mm.
This is about a bigger agenda that's captured the Defense Department, which is the CIA, which has also captured the Department of Justice, the FBI. Our intelligence agencies, our internal and external ones, are fucking captured, just like our government, just like our senators. It's the whole thing's been
Yeah. And
captured.
I know you want to make it clear too that within these agencies, they're employing a lot of people who are doing exactly what their charter says they're supposed to be doing. Because then they could say, no, look, we have all these people working on all these official projects, but they don't show you the people who are working on the black projects. Those are the ones who are up to evil shit.
100,000 million giant percent. That's exactly what I'm saying, because there are people that work, there are Navy SEALs that they won't carry too much bad karma. There are and especially them, because I think Blackwater, they use private agencies or the CIA operators to then do these other things that are a little bit darker more often.
Well, a BlackRock gets it from all over. Rangers,
Yeah, they'll
Green
take anybody.
Berets.
Fucking Israeli, this, that, the Mossad. That's a private company, but there are people in these agencies that we speak about with like retribution against them, but there are people that are carrying no bad karma because they literally go and do their little job and they write the numbers down, they do this, and they have no knowledge that they're so far down the line that they would be, how could they see what they're doing is connected to straight evil?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think it's really important, because when we speak about these things, you don't want to, if we make it sound like everybody, then it's like some people are like, really, every one of them? It's like, no, they're not all dark, like, evil worshiping motherfuckers. They're not, but they're at the very, very tippy tops are people that have been corrupted because they fucked up, and now they can be blackmailed, and that's why we can't see footage of 9/11's attack on the Pentagon. That's why they're the most surveilled building in the entire world. We can't see.
Mm-hmm.
No, but nothing works. Nothing works.
Cameras didn't work that day. They were turned
And
off.
it's like, cool. How long do you want me to keep just believing it when telling, oh, the cameras didn't work that day? Oh, the cameras didn't work that day. Oh, Epstein, the cameras didn't work that day. Like, how long do you want me to believe this?
That's a good question because it keeps happening that this business of the cameras were shut down. I heard one today listening to something else out there. I can't remember what it was. I'll tell you if I do. But just the very idea that the cameras at the Pentagon were down on 9/11 on the same day they were doing a training exercise that was national in scope. It's just beyond. It's just beyond the potential for a mistake or an accident. It's beyond that. It's too big. It's like, hey, this is a really, really important day. Make sure everything in the lead up is fucking dialed in. Like I've managed events for restaurants where you go into huge depth of getting every little detail in place. And we're supposed to think that the Pentagon just didn't get it right.
And nobody gets fired.
And no,
Like,
no one ever gets fired, do
so
they?
yeah,
And they
yeah,
fucking never
except
are held
us,
accountable.
except the fucking basic man, the common man, the divided man. We get
Well, that
fired.
that goes to show you this business about there's two cultures in the
Yes.
world. One believes in national borders and that governments make the biggest decisions, and the other culture is actually running shit and they keep invisible. And of course, they're not going to fire anyone who has done their bidding, with the occasional exception, like you toss your Derek Chauvins in jail or whatever. But that seemed like, well, I don't need to get into that whole thing again. But the point is, this other culture that actually runs the world and use their banks, their intelligence agencies, and the militaries to actually enforce what they want done, they're not going to come down on people who are doing their bidding because they were probably directed through some chain or channel, a channel that's probably susceptible to being blackmailed, a chain of command. And the person at the end who actually did the deed through that chain of command, who was also probably compromised, that chain of command is not getting punished.
Yeah, we have two tiers of justice. We have it's not an equal justice system. Justice is not blind in this country or many others.
Mm-hmm.
Justice is not blind.
Yeah, and the system's not broke, it's fixed.
Yeah. 100%.
Hey, you talked about hypocrisy when you opened this up, and there was a potential bit of hypocrisy in the shape of a false flag 80 years ago. We were going to talk about. Maybe we'll parlay into into a bit of American history that might be a giant bit of hypocrisy. What do you say we talk about December 7th, 1941?
Let's do it. We're there now. We're 2 days away here. When this drops, it'll probably be a week or two, a week after or so. Yeah, it's like we just say these words and then it's like everybody has to go, oh, like Pearl Harbor Day. Oh, don't nobody question anything. Oh,
Unless you're Japanese.
yeah.
Woohoo! Or half Japanese, then you don't know what to do. Half
What?
Japanese, half American, then you're in a bind.
Yeah, Japanese, Chinese. Hey, look at these. Um,
But it's a sacrosanct day. It's a sacred day. Pearl Harbor Day, a day that will go down in infamy with the attack that brought America into the Second World War that came out of nowhere, out of the blue.
yeah, our incredible systems of defense did not see this coming.
You say there might be some hypocrisy here?
Well, I mean, we've spoken
You
of false
tell.
flags before, and this would have been a false flag if done that way or
Hmm?
allowed to be done. Okay, I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, this is gonna go right to break the news, but like, yeah, sometimes a false flag is like not like doing the wrong thing or doing a false thing. Like, oh, we made this up. It's like the part you made up was you just allowed it to happen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's a good point because our typical idea of this false flag is the country getting attacked itself. But like you said, just let it happen. And oh my God, they attacked us.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I often think false flag, and it's like, oh, okay, so we had like some type of operation we did, and then you made it look like this or that. And the false flag can just very well like 9/11. The false flag can very well just be they allowed people to do it
Mm-hmm.
and didn't stop them. So then they can use this to do this other thing that they have their eyes on, so to say. Their eyes on this other prize. Like we want to do this, so this will allow us to do that.
Well, yeah. And I mean, even in the scenario of we didn't do anything, we just let it happen. In the case of 9/11, there's so much that went into it. And I want to compare this to 1941. You know, the day the 9/11 attacks, the cameras at the Pentagon weren't working. The day the 9/11 attacks, they had a nationwide
Drill.
military drill going on, and it confused people on how to respond to an actual emergency. There are all these things. Um, I remember back in the 90s, Conspiracy Land was pushing really hard the idea that Roosevelt and his administration, they knew those attacks were coming. They had intercepted cables to the Japanese embassy in Washington, D.C. or something along that line, or maybe they intercepted cables or communications out in the Pacific. But back in the 90s, pre 2001, pre Patriot Act, that was a pretty hard line that people were pushing. It's like, oh, yeah, they knew that Pearl Harbor attack was coming. They let that attack get through. Before the attack actually happened, they took all their most valuable ships, the carriers, and they took the aircraft carriers and they put them out to sea. And they left a bunch of big ships, like the battleships you heard about, the Missouri, or I don't know, not the Missouri, but the Arizona and other ships, cruisers and whatnot. They left them in port so that they would be the targets of this attack. But they got the most important shit out of there, the carriers. But the story back then, and this is over 20 years ago now, is that the Roosevelt administration knew the attack was coming. They took the best assets, got them out of the way. They let those planes in and had everybody on stand down, even though they knew it was coming. And they did it because it would get us into the Second World War, which the people that run this country really wanted us to be involved in. The people of this country had no fucking business being in that war. We got two oceans separating us from those countries that were at war. We have the geographic insulation to defend this country from, attack over those oceans. There's all kinds of reasons we could have stayed out of it. But we were not given a choice really because we were played through a giant game of narrative management is what the suggestion is here. That we let the attack happen. We let the attack happen, and everyone got behind the war effort because our boys got killed, because our boats got sunk, because they attacked us out of nowhere. And that's a perfectly played false flag if that's how it went down.
I mean, are we to really think that we didn't know they were coming? Like, did everything just failed that day and it all just worked out for the Japanese? Like,
You
false
would think.
flags can be what we're saying. False flags can be Operation Northwood, where they were going to take a aircraft airliner and have it blown up, but nobody would be on it, but people think people were on it.
Students,
Like, oh, we could. Oh my
even.
God, they killed the students. Oh my God. And then they didn't do that, so then they did Bay of Pigs. I
Yeah, and just
believe
so
after
everyone
that.
listening knows what he's talking about, go to your
Google.
wiki CIApedia
Yeah.
and look up Operation Northwoods. This was during the Kennedy administration. The generals and the military planners and the chiefs of staff and all that had this great idea that if we made it look like Cuba attacked the United States, then we could justify an invasion of Cuba.
Imagine
And
that.
yeah, as my fellow Agent Pine here just said, when that got shot down, I probably by Kennedy, if I remember right, when that got shot down, what followed it was the Bay of Pigs, and that also got scuttled mid operation. But that operation actually went through. But this is real shit. They were our leaders had planned a false flag terrorist attack against us, and it's documented and it's there. And the Freedom of Information Act has revealed this to be a real event that happened, and you could research it your damn self if you
Yeah.
want to.
Operation Northwood. That's what you're gonna look up for that one, I believe. I have it just made me think. It's like, okay, if we're gonna now it's like we're gonna go out a little bit. We're gonna come back with breaking news on this, but we're gonna go out a little bit and be like, what we've painted here over 15 episodes is that there is governments and there are organization I don't want to say organizations because it's a little too. There are governments and there are people within certain governments that will not not just for money, but almost like they're pushing some type of agenda, allow things to happen that are not in the best interest of a country. And and but we just keep trusting this government. We like right now, it's such turmoil, and I'm not gonna be, oh, it's Joe Biden's fault. No, no, this isn't that. Joe Biden is a puppet, literally the biggest puppet president we've ever had. He looks like a fucking like clothes on a clothes hanger. Like he is a fucking like he's an automaton. Okay.
What do you want me to do?
Um
That way.
it,
Got
it's
it.
it's silly. It's it's absolutely bonkers. And out of fear, this happened. This literally all happened out of fear, the way they got spread. But it's not about him. There are people in place that are. This is what the agents of Aquarius. This is our whole not goal. This is our like. This is our not motto. This is
It's
what we
one of the
talk.
goals,
It's
man.
what we talk about. This is what
Talk about
it's
how the
the
world actually works. It's not Joe Biden pulling
yeah.
strings and making shit happen. It's the people who are behind him.
We are continually lied to and lied into wars. Uh, John F. Kennedy Jr., with all his faults, did not want us to get into more wars. And with that, he had seen behind the curtain, apparently, and was aware that these, what we'd spoken about earlier, these intelligence agencies are out of fucking control. And he threatened to blow them into 1,000 pieces. And we already covered this last episode. And then they blew his fucking head apart.
Yeah, they literally have no oversight, though. There's no one who can dig into their operations and decide if they've broken the law, did something right or wrong, contradict the Constitution. It's legally written into their charter that they only investigate themselves.
And we can't have that. You can't have police investigating themselves. You can't have intelligence agencies investigating and also doing accounting for themselves. What is it, third year in a row that CIA can't?
No, I
They
think it's their
hey,
fifth audit.
Okay, like fifth audit, they're like, they failed. They
Yeah.
fucking failed.
Half their budget, they can't tell you where it went.
So here we are, not at a crossroads. I mean, crossroads can happen a lot. Sure. Here we are at a crossroads. Once you become aware, if you've listened to every one of these episodes, you're past the point. You know about Building 7. You understand what happened to JFK. You see that behind this, there's some type of inherent evil. And I'm like thinking now, like, and this is what they do. This is what they do. When they do evil, they like to make a monument. I
Hmm.
would like to go and just observe the monument of Pearl Harbor and see all the symbology they probably threw in there. All the little darkness that they're like showing. They're like, hey, here's a monument to this horrific day that we let happen. Just
You
like
know, I was just
9/11.
there a couple of weeks ago, not at the monument, but I was just in Honolulu a couple of weeks ago, and I was telling my wife, it's like, what do you want to do when you're there? We have no schedule except go to the beach. And I thought, well, I'd never been to
Pearl
Pearl
Harbor.
Harbor to the monument, and I got there, and I could almost on firsthand account tell you what was there. I did go to a military cemetery because my father-in-law was paying his respects to his family who were interned there. And they had a lot of memorabilia, like like a big marble section that had I guess what do you call it? It was commemorating major wars and battles and things like that. And I took some pictures. Like some of my family was engaged in some of that stuff, but I wish now that I would have gone to the damn Arizona, but I went to the beach instead. Sorry for that sidetrack. It's just funny you said that because it's like, oh, I was actually planning to go there, but it fell through. So I don't know what that monument would have hidden in its meaning, but I get you. The people who run this world tend, when you look at how the world's run and you try to think in rational thoughts like, man, how is everything so fucking crazy? I just don't understand. It's because you're not giving credit to the fact that the people who run the world are in all likelihood psychopaths, sociopaths, out of their mind fucking lunatics who don't have any respect for human life. That's the only way the world is run makes sense. But if that's the driving thought that the world's run by psychopaths who know exactly what they're doing, and they do shit like erect monuments for these atrocities and hide messages in them. I mean, that's an interesting topic of conversation. Have you actually thought about what is in the Arizona Memorial?
I've never been there, so I don't know. It just dawned on me. I was talking about this. It's just like, oh, we pull all these statues. They're pulling statues down, but meanwhile, we have monuments erected to these different horrific events, so we can never forget. But it's like, are they making you sure you never forget? Because like, hey, we fucking did this. Don't forget.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't know that they did it, but
The monument's a victory lap in that case, or
yes,
a pat
yeah.
on the back for them.
I would think even more than that because I think they're really big into symbology. So I think there's a lot of symbology involved in those.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of symbology involved, I believe. I mean, if you look at the 9/11 one, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
the 9/11 is the void of the black square.
How is that? Break that down for me.
The void of the black square, the 9/11 monument. Okay, I've never heard this
Oh, the
anywhere.
monument. Okay, I thought you meant the
I've
numbers.
no, I've never heard this anywhere, but
Oh, I
I'm gonna
get you
pull
now.
this
The
up.
void of the black square is the black square, that one that's in Saudi Arabia,
Everywhere. Yeah. In Mecca. No,
Mecca. Yes, yes,
In
the big
Mecca,
giant black square.
they go around that black rock.
Yep.
Then you have it's also seen on the bottom of Saturn because if you look at a black square on its angle, it turns into like a hexagon, I believe, or it's something along that. Like so, they say that the bottom of the
Yeah.
uh if the bottom of Saturn, like where they video or get video footage, I don't know how they do all this, but that's a like this black hexagon, but that's a black square seen on an angle. And then they have black square. There's several parts in New York. I believe there's one in New York, and then also in Washington. Not positive about the Washington, but you keep seeing this black square is shown, but the absence of the black square is in 9/11.
Yeah. So what does it mean to have the opposite of a black square or the void of a black square? Is there a symbology there that we need to understand?
I would think that if you know, then you'd know that can just be the black square.
Right. Another
Like
one.
you can look at like, oh, that's where it's from. That's where it fits. That's because it's a like square. I think it's a square. The whole first
Yeah. Yeah.
drop
We just saw that young
could
guy like drop into the hole not too long ago.
could be a rectangle, but in the inner, that's a black square. I'm
Right.
saying like the whole first drop is like
Yeah.
I think that's a square, but the void
Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
square. It's where a square could be in like if you had
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
square spaceship,
100%.
you could drop it,
Absolutely.
and then the inner is another black void of black square, but it's also all black.
Hmm.
And it just dawned on me. It's like, oh, that they're just showing the void because I think you go over to Rockefeller Center, right within a couple blocks or down the street, you can go then find another black square. I don't
Yeah. All
remember
right.
where that one's
You
at
know,
right now,
so
but
but the symbology gets written in again, we're talking the people who make these decisions to do these things, we're talking about that other culture, not the culture that believes in national borders and governments make the big decisions. We're talking about the other culture, the much smaller culture that runs this world.
yes,
And these guys,
triform.
those are three tools, the triform
Oh
system of control. I love that phrase. I'm all
yeah,
about the triform system of control. That's your banks, intelligence agencies, and armies.
yeah,
But no, this second culture that exists right alongside the regular culture, the one that's not subject to the laws of the regular culture, the one that controls the regular culture through its puppet governments, this group is the one that will make decisions to build monuments, to build in symbology, to build in numerology. And it's really, really fair to say that this other culture is very occult minded. They're very uh they're probably into their dark magic and some weird ass shit that most people in the larger culture would never understand and never consider that the people who run things in this world are actually, um, for lack of a better way of putting it, practitioners of dark magic. Like this building of symbols, this use of numbers, this use of dates and times when events happen. It's 3/11, it's 9/11, it's always some shit like that.
yes. It would it's written in there because then you see what they've built on 9/11 before. You see this. When was it? Just the thing that they love numbers, they love symbols. I think it's some type of language to the universe or language for them.
Mm-hmm.
Which symbols are. I mean, that's all the character, the letter A is a symbol. It's nothing more than that. Oh no, it's a letter. It's a symbol that we call a letter.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, here we are. We're gonna drag this on even more. We're gonna break the news right now. And then we're gonna show like this thing keeps happening. We're like false flags. Oh, so we like pretended that happened, or oh, we made that happen and then said somebody else did it. Well, also the false flag of we let it happen. So that we can now be like, we don't even have to do it. They did it. We
Yeah,
just let
you
it
just got to
happen.
stand down.
And now you and that's I mean, we can't do break the news without like break the news. And now we can break the news. It was in this is you. This was on you. You had this article that you just
Yeah,
presented to me before we started the podcast. It's like, what should we do with break the news today? And this was like easily found. Go for it.
yeah, great. 3 days ago, the New York Times dropped a story. Um, Israel knew the October 7th attack plans a year prior. Now, what the New York Times is doing first is saying that they're not as explicit as, oh, we knew it was going to happen. They're saying they knew the plans a year ago. And the supposed experts in Israeli intelligence or government or something deemed that Hamas didn't have the capability to pull off the plans that Israel was aware of. What's weird about this, first, and I won't stay in this too long, is that the New York Times put this story out because the New York Times has cheerleaded us into every war for the last 100 years or 50 years or however long it's been. They're always there to push us into war, and they're very slow to back us out of a war. But when it comes to things like war and foreign affairs, the New York Times tends to be a mouthpiece for the State Department, the White House, the intelligence agencies. They just repeat back whatever's said to them. So the fact that the New York Times said Israel knew this attack is coming is very, very curious. But what's way more curious is this idea of, did Israel know this attack was coming? In 1941, did the U.S. government know the Japanese were coming? In 2001, did the U.S. government know that the plane attack was going to happen? Now in October 7th of this year, did Israel know? And there's really compelling reasons to think, fuck yeah, they did. Because this government has wanted to eradicate the Palestinians. They wanted to chase them out of the country and disperse them to Egypt and Turkey and Yemen and who knows where else. So it's politically expedient that this attack got through. But also, I remember like on October 8th, listening to Israeli people who had served in the IDF and they were stationed on that border. And they're like, man, a fucking flea can't get over this wall without us knowing. They had the most sophisticated border security in all the history. And on October 7th, I was watching tractors, front end loaders from Gaza, pushing the wall aside so guys could drive by on motorcycles. It's like, how do you drive a tractor in the middle of the day to a border wall that is the most surveilled wall in the world and not blow it up immediately? Like, they had time to dismantle the wall. And Gaza has been a closed territory since 2007. The people who live there are not allowed to leave there. And if they try to leave there, they're going to get shot by the military, who is running a perimeter around this area. So the premise that I'm pushing is that this is another false flag by standing down. And it's been repeated again and again. And anyone who wants to freak out about this opinion, I would just ask you, it's like, how did it happen though? How did these guys get through if they weren't let through? Because that's what this business about December 7th was. That attack was allowed to happen to force America into the war. That's what this 9/11 is about. There was no one defending from that attack, because what the administration at that time needed, these neocons and the Republicans who were serving them, they needed their war on terror. So again, this October 7th, how could it happen unless you let it? And it just so happens to fit a pattern that we've watched happen again and again. The Gulf of Tonkin, that was a false flag. What got us into the Spanish-American War, that ship that sailed into port in Cuba that got blown up, that was the false flag. Like, these aren't fantasy land. I mean, now granted, December 7th and 9/11, we don't have it on paper of like, yeah, we allowed this to happen. But all the dots are there to one after the other. 9/11, the cameras were not working at the Pentagon. On that day, there was a nationwide military exercise that confused what was going on in the air between exercise and real emergency. There are all kinds of things that were happening that day where they were just really, really unlikely. Same as this October 7th business. How is it even possible that so many breaches of that wall could happen at the same time without them getting blasted, without it happening because some evil fuck of that secondary culture that runs this country decided it was time to make their move on Gaza?
I mean, we're not aware of the I mean, we speak about the big picture here. We try to decode the puzzle that is the big picture and put pieces in front of people so they can put it all together. Maybe they see the big picture. We don't, and we still don't even exactly know. We know what something possibly called the New World Order. We know that's part of some grander scheme, some type of global governance. Like, that's, if we can get rid of all these nations, we can then, they can create one type of government or governance throughout the world. We don't know exactly why they do it, but we are here, observing, and saying this is what it looks like. This
Hmm.
is another way to look at this. Instead of
Yeah,
like, oh,
thanks for
we know for
clarifying
a
that.
fact, like it's really important. What the whole reason we're here, the whole reason we do this is because we were fed up talking to each other. As much as we love just talking to each other, and that was fantastic, we were fed up and we needed to get out and we needed to at least share because we thought it was important. And it is important because there is seems to be this triform system is operating behind the scenes like a James Bond movie of like governments and then private entities beyond the governments working towards some type of private. Now they even tell us, they've now begun to tell us, you'll eat crickets and like it. No, you'll own nothing and like it. You'll eat crickets, it's fine. You should cut your meat consumption down. Like all these things, like they're just like taking away people's I mean, freedom seems like I'm saying too big, like too big a thing, but it's true. And they do it through these ways that only can be deemed and seen as evil. These manipulations of killing presidents, these manipulations of killing social leaders, these systems of creating false narratives so you can push an agenda to get what you want done while everybody thinks you're trying to do it for some other reason. I keep hearing right now safety, safety, safety in my fucking ear so hard. Like, oh, we could do this and be safer. We can be safe. We can. This is for safety. We will be more safe. Well, it's secure. They love the fucking word secure. Um, and it's all like, but you're gonna have to give up your freedom, but we're gonna make sure you're safe. And
Hey, why is that? Why is it always you have to give up your freedom to be safer? Why can't we just be good at what we do? I mean,
because
October
what
7th and 9/11 were both intelligence failures. It's like, oh, we had a failure of intelligence on that day, and so did these other guys. It's like there's that recurring theme again. So I guess the question, I'll repeat it again. It's like, why can we have safety and liberty? Why do we always have to give up our freedom to do things?
I'll tell you what, you want to get the attention of the CIA or the fucking this triform, go create your own currency. Go do a gold, go create a gold backed currency like
Yeah,
Muammar
do you know
Gaddafi.
anybody who did it? Yeah,
Yeah.
Muammar Gaddafi, yeah.
But go do that. You want to get on these people's radar, dude? That's how you do it.
Hey, I'll just tell you on that topic, that was when I learned that idea, and it was probably like, I mean, when was that? Was 2011, 7?
I'm not sure.
I
Yeah,
don't fucking remember.
it's
It wasn't long after that idea was presented to me, and I was like, oh yeah, I've been studying for a couple of decades how the world actually works, like what the levers of control are. And as soon as I heard that Gaddafi was pushing um, a new currency other than the US dollar, I was like, oh, that makes all the sense because the banks are the first part of the triform system of control. And you push against that, and they're going to push back. They probably tried their regime change. They probably tried their assassination attempts with the second part of the triform. And when that failed, they broke out the third. And they
I mean,
fucking
yeah,
wiped that country to,
it's
they
still in
fucked it up.
disarray. It's still in disarray. The,
It's
the
run by
country is in complete, yeah,
competing warlords.
completely in disarray. It's one of the biggest slave markets in the world, like open
Mm-hmm.
slave markets. I heard it's little as $12 you can get a person.
No shit.
Yeah, that's how bad it is. You're not getting a good one though. You're getting
Yeah.
you're gonna get one that's broken probably,
Yeah.
but for $12 you can buy a person.
12 bucks. No, bro,
Make
at the start of the Russian war, I was talking to a pretty regular person, regular American kind of dude. And I said, hey, just for a second, think about how we've been lied into every other war forever. And now there's this new war. Do you really think they're telling the truth? And as like, you got Iraq and Afghanistan, and I said Libya, and he's like, Libya. It's like, yeah, when we destroyed Libya, and he was like, so what? We're just supposed to let a dictator run loose? And I was like, holy fucking shit! It's like first of all, yeah, it's not our goddamn business, but he was just so it blew me away because I'm a thinker, how lacking in knowledge he was. It's like, no, we should stay out of the business for one, but two, we didn't go there to free those people from a dictator, because if you just look at the state of the country now, it's 100 times worse, and we're not doing anything to help them now. So we were going to help them out of a dictator, but we won't help them out of open air slave markets.
Yeah,
It's like the thinking is so fucking narrow. It makes me mad. Makes me mad.
Yeah, it makes me mad too. And I think we've done the positive part of this. Like, we're wrapping it up. The positive part is that we're here. We're talking about it. Sure, episode 1 got taken down on YouTube. Sure, we put it back up. So, hey, if you could do me a favor, if you can't like and subscribe or do it, like, or if you can go just like re-like episode 1, and we can do this in fashion of just like, because it had a bunch of views. That was like our most popular one. It kept getting views every time, and then the other ones would get a couple views here and there, and we're still small and we're growing, but here we are, and they fucking took like, like 40% of all of our views that we had on YouTube gone when they just removed that one episode. It's back out. That's the good news. We need to keep fighting. We're going to lose other videos. Other things are going to happen to us because we haven't tried to completely skirt and play the game perfectly to not get removed. But if we're getting removed, there's a reason, and it's a good reason. I'm proud of it. I wear it like a badge of honor. It's because they'll call it misinformation or disinformation, but what we're doing is we're presenting ideas. And ideas shouldn't be that dangerous because we aren't spreading hate in any way. There's nothing in this podcast that has ever been spread of hate. The only thing we hate, and we will both give those people retribution, is those people that are out there doing known evil, knowingly do it. And it's still, somebody should have a chance. I'm not saying you get to walk around free if you were like Jeffrey
No,
Dahmer.
get a chance to defend yourself. Shit,
But
get a fair
yeah,
trial. Good for
yeah.
you.
Like we're about love. This is about love. We're frustrated. We're angry. We're both angry. And we're fed up. And here we are, but we're gonna keep showing up. We're not stopping. We're coming back. And we're about to let loose in moments on the
Yeah. Well,
Patreon.
I want to
Talking.
make a request first.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Me and Agent Pine here, we've got this great rapport going so that we could rap like this for an hour straight. Not everyone's got someone super close in their life that they can do that with. We took a lot of time to get a lot of knowledge to do this, but if you are out there and you want to do something, we always had this real good fallback before this podcast business came about. Like, this is what Jimmy and I are doing right now to do something. Because the idea is like, man, you got to engage somewhere in the world. You got to do something to push back against the forces that control this world. But what we used to always say was, what can you do? Here's an easy one. If you're present for a conversation like this, encourage it, engage it, push it forward. Because you could reach people one person at a time, and you could reach someone face to face a lot better than you can through a screen. So if you see a conversation that's breaking down how the world works, that's pushing back against the system, system of control, take a minute to just butt in and encourage it and move it forward. That's how you could do your part with us.